nuclear energy is a very, very important frontier of science that has been talked about for many years, but has not been understood for an equal point in time. The reality is, energy is very critical to human welfare. If there's no energy, there's no development. If there's no development, there's poverty, and there is a huge effect on human welfare. India, as a country with several 100 million people who are disadvantaged, is very much in need of energy. And it's in this context that our nuclear industry, the nuclear power industry especially, is one of the few sectors in India where the country has made cutting-edge advances in technology. Of course, part of the reason is also because there's less bureaucracy in this particular department. It's even headed by a technical individual rather than a generalist administrator. But whatever the reasons, the fact is that this is a technology that this country has been dealing with, and this is a technology that's going to be increasingly important for the future not only of India, but I would say the globe as a whole. That's why we have called together this very distinguished panel of 3 experts on nuclear energy. Dr. P.K. Vijayan, who's the Director of Reactor Design and Development Group in the Bhabha Atomic Research Center. Dr. Jean-Pierre Rivol, the President of the International Thorium Energy Committee, and that's a very exciting new source of energy, low-cost energy. And of course, Dr. K.L. Ramkumar, who's very well known, who's the Director, RCIG, of the Radiochemistry and Isotope Group in the Bhabha Atomic Research Center. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming here today. And I want to begin with you, Dr. Rivol. Now, why exactly is it important that nuclear energy is a field that we cannot do without?
Well, let me start by explaining that the problem of India that you just mentioned is actually the problem of the whole world. I think it's probably the first time that mankind is facing a global problem. It's the problem of energy. Today, our civilization is running on fossil fuel. I mean, we need fossil fuel to run our cars, to make electricity, to run the industry. The entire economy is running on fossil fuel. And then we know that this resource is finite. That means that sooner or later, of the order of 50 to 100 years, we will have to do something else if we have no other reason to stop earlier. And there are very important reasons to even stop earlier burning fossil fuel. One of them, everybody knows these days, people are talking about global warming, the fact that by burning fossil fuel you produce CO2, and that the CO2 is warming up the atmosphere, which has very dear consequences. But there is something else that people seem to forget, is that burning fossil fuel is creating pollution in the atmosphere, and this pollution is having very severe effect on the health of people. The WHO organization, which takes care of health for the world, has estimated that 1 death in 8 in the world today is already due to air pollution.
Dr. Ramkumar, you have studied this for many years. What are the various fields in which nuclear power and the nuclear industry can be of value to us as citizens?
In addition to the nuclear energy that is available only for the electricity generation, we do have very exciting applications of this nuclear energy for many of the societal applications. For instance, in healthcare, we have a series of radioisotopes which are produced in a nuclear reactor, which are also produced in different medical cyclotrons, which could be used as radiopharmaceuticals for the treatment of cancer, one of the most the critical or identified diseases of 20th century. This particular application, in fact, even our International Atomic Energy Agency Director General Amano has included as one of the most important areas where the agency could really contribute to the health care of the citizens of the world. This is where the nuclear energy per se, the reactors would come very handy to expand the potential scope of applications of nuclear energy in the form of radiopharmaceuticals for the upliftment of the common masses.
Dr. Vijayan, there's been a complaint that nuclear energy or nuclear systems are inherently much more expensive, and that a poor country like India, it's a luxury for a poor country like India to go in with that, and therefore a poorer country should not really go in for this particular option. What is your answer to that?
Well, I do agree that the capital investment for nuclear power plants is large compared to the fossil fired power plants, and also it has a time of construction is much larger. But if you look at a power plant with a longer life, like AHWR, which we are looking at, it's 100 years life.
What exactly is that AHWR?
That the advanced heavy water reactor which we are developing, it's a thorium based reactor, and it is expected to develop all those technologies required for thorium utilization in the future. So this reactor, we put a lifetime of 100 years, which is, I think, is in far excess of all other reactors that they claim. So this is, it does two things. One is it is going to, this power is going to be available for a long time to come. Coming to the reduction of cost, see, the best way is to indigenize all those technologies that we are using. However, I am not advocating that everything to be indigenized, but at least the critical ones to be indigenized.
For example, in Europe, a very significant anti-nuclear lobby. Now, Germany is shutting down its reactors. Other countries are under pressure to shut down the reactors. If there is so much good in this particular technology, why is it that so many good people are opposed to it?
Well, you see, I don't think the solution to the energy problem will come from politicians. Politicians cannot invent solutions. Solutions will come from scientists doing R&D and finding other methods. And the example of Germany you just mentioned is quite interesting. That's the country with the strongest green party, and it's the #1 polluter in Europe. A German citizen pollutes 6.5 times more than an Indian citizen. Why is that? Because they convinced people that renewable energies are the best solution. However, renewable energies, they use either solar energy or wind energy. And the problem is that when there is no sun and no wind, what do? So the German the politicians decided to stop nuclear energy in Germany, but that has not taken place yet. And today, German citizens pollute a lot more because they have already a lot of coal-fired power plants. Now Germany is building 20 more coal-fired power plants to replace their nuclear power, and they will pollute even more. So this is a very good example showing that you cannot just do unilateral decision on political basis. You have to trust a little bit the scientists to find the best solution.
Could you add to that point, Dr. Ramkumar, as to why exactly nuclear energy is safe?
Well, if we see the entire history of nuclear energy in the global scenario, how many major accidents that have taken place so far? I think four if I remember correctly, I don't think. And a critical analysis of all these 4 accidents, including the latest, the Fukushima. And in fact, a lot of work has been done on Fukushima accident. There were many reports which were republished. Japanese diet itself came out. IAEA came out with the latest, I think in the previous general conference. A report has been released by the Director General. And there is one WHO report. Uniformly, my understanding is the deaths that were caused because of this Fukushima accident, radiation exposure to the people, they are absolute. I don't think they are minuscule. Because of this tsunami.
Can you put a number to that?
Well, but I don't have the figures at present, but the effect of radiation on it has been established that absolutely it is far below than whatever the what do you call the anti-nuclear lobby has been promulgating. That is something which has been proven beyond doubt. I mean, even in the case of Chernobyl, which was the severest accident, that was 1986, if I remember correctly. Yes, yeah. So there again, the deaths were due to radiation. I think there were not many. I think it could be less, maybe 30 or 35. 35 just to see. You just to see.
Just 35.
Absolutely.
In Chernobyl.
In Chernobyl.
Just 35.
35. That was, I mean, that was that is what I was, the direct consequence of the radiation deaths. And if I remember correctly, there were news items that flora and fauna in the Chernobyl reactor site are now flourishing. I mean, had there been a continuity of this radiation exposure, I don't think this type of, whether the environment, whether it is for the human beings or the flora fauna, that radiation could affect. Whereas the nuclear scientists take utmost precautions to see that even the smallest exposure that is prevalent there, these people are not exposed to.
So you're saying it's quite safe?
Absolutely, it is safe beyond doubt.
Let's get on to thorium actually, because there is a view that thorium could be, in a sense, a miracle kind of a feedstock, which produces very low cost energy, and which is of course very essential for human progress. I mean, why exactly is thorium seen as having this high potential? And again, but then the second question is, why is it that as yet we don't see it operational?
To your first question, I think that unfortunately, even if we wanted to continue nuclear energy the way we do it today, it's not sustainable. There is not enough uranium to provide the isotope that is used for fission. So we have to do something else. So the question is to not only make nuclear energy better, but make it sustainable. And thorium offers the possibility of making nuclear energy sustainable. In fact, Professor Carlo Rubbia from CERN, who has the Nobel Prize in Physics, essentially said that thorium is a sustainable source of energy for mankind. If you would take only 1 part per million of the thorium in the Earth's crust, you could run the civilization as we have it today for 20,000 years. So, you know, it's quite spectacular. In 20,000 years, I trust that we will find even better ways of making energies. Thorium is abundant. You have about 4 times more thorium in the Earth's crust than uranium. It's relatively uniformly distributed. And the way thorium is used in nuclear energy is a bit different from the way we do nuclear energy today with uranium. And as a consequence, we essentially use all the thorium instead of using only 0.7% like we do in the uranium.
We're not really seeing it as yet.
Because it's a bit easier to use uranium, and I think also that initially the way we do nuclear energy came from military consideration. And I think that already at the time of the Manhattan Project, people like Lawrence thought of using thorium to make bombs, and it turns out that it did not work very well, so people dropped it. So I think one of the main reasons we did not turn to thorium is that you can make nuclear bombs with uranium, and also the way uranium is being used was relatively cheap until recently, where people put a lot more safety features and so forth. So it was cheap, sufficiently abundant, and provided all the plutonium that you need to make bombs, so there was no reason to make an effort toward thorium. I think these
But you feel that thorium is now coming into vogue?
Absolutely, and I'm actually extremely happy to see that India is taking the lead in this area. And personally, I think it's really a shame that advanced countries like the United States and Europe, which have developed the most advanced nuclear technology, are not collaborating better with developing countries like India and China to solve this problem, which again is a global problem. And I think this is really something that has to happen, that we need to see a global effort so that we converge faster toward a better technology and useful technology, and eventually a cheap enough technology that everybody can afford it.
But you feel it's technologically feasible? It can
Yes, in fact, that's what we're discussing in this conference. It's not clear yet which will be the best solution, but this is the reason why we need to reinforce the R&D effort to find the best solutions.
It's a very important conference, and it's taking place here in the home of the nuclear energy industry in India, which is the Bhabha Atomic Research Center. I want to end with you, Dr. Ramkumar, and tell me your vision of what would be, in a sense, I wouldn't use the word ideal, but what would be a very healthy way, a healthy development of the nuclear industry in the context of India's needs?
Yes, really to bring this nuclear energy, particularly with respect to the thorium utilization, we are proud to say that India is the lead country as of now in thorium technology, and a demonstration reactor in terms of advanced heavy water reactor is going to be a reality, and maybe in less than 10 years you would have, I think the entire world would have the pleasure of seeing a working advanced heavy water reactor with thorium as the fuel.
In India?
In India. Second most important aspect, which Dr. Raivul rightly said, the advanced countries with real nuclear technological base, they should also take equal interest in developing this thorium utilization in their own countries. Let me be very frank. Making a statement that we are going to stop nuclear energy in our country and then still at the same time maintain the same level of development, that is not going to be a workable solution. It is in the long run, it is going to lead to more climate damage than of what we are experiencing today. Nuclear energy is the only option.
He gave the example of Germany.
Exactly. Nuclear energy is the only option. What is essential is the research in these activities should not be a stop for me, should not be an event of use, stop, and then again, okay, let it hibernate and take it further. And India is the only country which sustained with its efforts to go in for thorium technology. That is what I am looking forward to in other countries. In the global requirement, how are you going to address? So, and my feeling is this conference and series of such conferences would really induce all the countries to take a serious look into the nuclear energy utilization of thorium on a global scale. Now it is going to be regional. Now it has to be a global scale. We do speak in terms of having international collaborations. Just now I had an interactive session with the Canadians to have these international collaborations with India. So now this is how a collaborative effort in terms of this thorium energy conference, and I am sure that you would also agree with the International Thorium Energy Organization, would definitely be adding a little more incentive to this type of research collaborations among the countries to put this particular technology on firm footing for the global, the security in terms of energy and long sustainable the energy availability to the teeming populations in the world.
Thank you. If I may ask just a small comment, I think thorium, because of the lack of proliferation, or I mean its high proliferation resistance, I think might be a subject that on which all countries could collaborate, because you know the big issue about collaboration on the uranium fuel cycle is proliferation, and this is almost completely absent in the thorium fuel cycle. So there is hope that countries could eventually collaborate on this issue.
Not only countries, but even within a country, the private and public sector as well.
Yeah.
Because what do you say, Dr. Vijay? I think the private sector also would have an important role to play.
I think definitely yes. I must also add one more thing. Why thorium has been abandoned in between. Because at that time there were many technologies being looked at, and once the light water reactor technology succeeded, then they did not find enough motivation to go for the alternate technologies, although it was even realized at that time that many of these technologies could be much more efficient than the light water reactor technology. Today what has happened is, say if you, people first, all demonstration reactors were of the order of say 200 megawatt, then they went for scaling up went to 700, 1000, now 1600. In the process they did enhance the unit or reduce the unit energy cost, but by the time mid 90s they found now nothing much can be done, because if you look at the 1960s reactor or the 1995 or 2015 reactor of the light water reactor, they operate at the same pressure temperature conditions. So if you know that to enhance the efficiency of power conversion, you have to operate at much higher temperature. Now this generation 4 which people are talking about, this is a class of reactors which are going to have high efficiency, and because of that it is going to be much more competitive than the fossil fuel technologies.
I just want to end this by saying that Prime Minister Modi has got a very clear 21st century vision. So it's very clear from what you gentlemen are saying that nuclear industry is inescapable, and nuclear industry is very, very important for the future of this country, and it's something which really needs the highest priority from the government and specifically from the Prime Minister Modi, who is also the Minister for Atomic Energy. Thank you very much for sparing the time.
Thank you.